The sun climbed over the horizon, casting long golden light across the dusty fields of northern Ghana. The air was still cool, but the ground was already dry and cracked. On this land, life depended on rain that sometimes came too little and sometimes too late. Kwame Mensah was bent over his old tractor, hands covered in grease, trying to coax life into a machine that had seen better days. At 45, he had learned the language of engines through necessity. Each sputter, each cough told him a story. Machines were stubborn like the land he farmed, but he had learned to keep them running. That morning, as he tightened a loose bolt, another sound reached him, not from his tractor, from the road. He froze and listened carefully. A car engine struggled, sputtered, then fell silent. Kwame wiped his hands on his faded trousers and looked up. On the dirt road, a black luxury SUV stood still with its hood raised. Smoke rose faintly from the engine. Standing beside it was a young woman in a bright Ankara dress, holding her phone in the air, waving it desperately in search of a signal. Kwame studied the scene. She was dressed too finely for this place. Her hair neat, her shoes clean, her jewelry gleaming in the sunlight. She looked like she belonged in the capital, not on a dusty rural road where goats roam freely and children carried water in yellow containers. Kwame thought of minding his own business. He had enough trouble of his own. His farm was 3 months behind on loan payments. His maize fields were drying up from poor rains. He had already sold off 2 goats to cover debts. He could not afford new problems. But then his mother's words came back to him, words she had repeated all through his youth. A person is not measured by what they own, but by how they treat others when help is needed. With a sigh, Kwame picked up his old toolbox and walked slowly toward the road. The young woman turned when she saw him. Relief spread across her face. She introduced herself as Ama Boateng. Her car had stopped without warning, and there was no phone signal anywhere. She looked frustrated and out of place on this lonely road. Kwame greeted her politely and leaned over the car engine. Years of fixing tractors and motorcycles made the work familiar. Ama stood nearby, no longer waving her phone. Instead, she watched him, her eyes filled with curiosity. She asked where he lived. Kwame pointed to his small farmhouse by the field. He told her that his father and grandfather had worked this land before him. Ama said it must feel special to belong to one place for so long. Her voice carried a kind of envy. Kwame sensed she had never known such belonging. She admitted quietly that her family lived in a world where people cared more about money than names. People judged before they even spoke to you. Kwame looked at her differently then. He saw not a wealthy stranger, but someone longing for meaning. He found the problem, tightened a loose wire, and closed the hood. The car started smoothly. Ama's face lit up with gratitude. She asked how much she owed him. Kwame shook his head. He said not every act needed payment. She looked at him as if he had spoken a language she had never heard before. That small act of kindness was the beginning. Over the next weeks, Ama returned. Sometimes she arrived in a rented car from town. Sometimes she came with the excuse of learning about farming. Other times she admitted she needed peace away from Accra. Each visit lasted longer. She sat on Kwame's porch, her fine shoes now dusted with soil. She asked about his crops, his father's struggles, his grandfather's dreams. She listened as he explained what it meant to depend on the rain, to fight with weeds, to work long hours without any guarantee of reward. Kwame found himself waiting for her visits. She was different from anyone he had known, and she seemed to find comfort in his world, far from the noise of the city. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the maize fields and painted the sky orange, Kwame asked what her father did. Amma grew quiet. Finally, she admitted the truth. Her father was Kofi Boateng, the head of Boateng Holdings, one of the biggest companies in West Africa. Kwame was shocked. Everyone knew the name. But before he could say anything, Amma's voice trembled. She begged him not to treat her differently. She said she was tired of being seen as only her father's daughter. Kwame studied her. He told her that her father's fortune did not erase the woman who had been coming to his farm week after week, asking real questions and sharing her time. She was still Amma. That was enough. 2 months later, Kwame's struggles caught up with him. A letter arrived. The bank was preparing to take his farm. He had worked long days, sold livestock, sacrificed, but it was not enough. The land his family had held for generations was slipping away. When Amma came that afternoon, she found him sitting silently with the letter in his hands. She read it and her face turned pale. She asked how much was needed. Kwame shook his head firmly. He said he would not accept her family's money. He would not become one more person using her. Amma's eyes filled with determination. She told him this was not about her family's wealth. It was about what he had given her. In him, she had found respect, kindness, and honesty. He had shown her what it meant to be valued as a person, not a price tag. Now she wanted to stand with him, not because of money, but because she had chosen this life and chosen him. Kwame warned her. Farming was not easy. There was more hardship than joy. But Amma did not turn away. She said she had lived with wealth and emptiness long enough. She would rather live with struggle and meaning. 6 months later, Kwame stood again at the roadside where he had first seen Amma's broken SUV. The same land stretched out around them, but much had changed. Beside him stood Amma, no longer in fine city dresses, but in work boots and worn jeans. Her manicured hands had grown rough. Her face carried the glow of someone who belonged. Kwame asked softly if she had regrets. She smiled. She admitted he was still too stubborn to accept help easily, but she said she had no regrets. Her father was still angry, still refusing to speak with her, but she believed he would one day understand. She had not married beneath her. She had chosen the life she was meant to live. Together, they walked back toward the farmhouse. Kwame thought of how it had all begun with one act of kindness on a dusty road. Life had changed because he chose to help a stranger. Two people from different worlds had found love, respect, and belonging in each other. Sometimes the greatest changes come quietly, hidden in simple choices. Stopping to help, offering kindness, seeing someone for who they are, not for what they have. If this story touched you, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who values true connection, and subscribe for more stories like this one.